The question I am going to ask you today is, are you trying to misunderstand? Are you trying to misunderstand your ex? Now, sometimes, what I mean by this is sometimes when we listen, we are not seeking to understand his or her perspective. We are filtering through our own belief system. We're attaching our own story to what they're saying, and we have an agenda or a point to prove. So we are going to sometimes intentionally try to misunderstand them because that means that we win. So, this episode is all about bringing awareness to this pattern and to offer a way out. So, let's talk about some of the reasons why we intentionally try to misunderstand the other person. So, the first is that we have an agenda. We have a point to prove. We want to win. We are going to do whatever it takes to dissect and pick apart what they are saying and construe it in a way that serves us. So, this is very common when we are dealing with someone that we are adversarial with, we're frustrated with. So that's another piece of this. So if we're already going into a discussion with a person that we don't really get along with, we are going to be more attached to being right. Like our ego is not want to give that person the benefit of the doubt because we don't like them. So we want to be able to dismiss everything that they are saying, and we want our points to be the most valid and golden points in this discussion. Another reason this happens is something called confirmation bias. So we hear this a lot sort of like in the ether in society, but it actually happens in regular day-to-day discussions as well. So we are looking for points that validate our perspective and our beliefs, and we want to discard the rest. So we were only looking for things that confirm what we already believe. So if our ex is saying something that contradicts our perspective, our belief system, we are more likely to just completely disregard it because we don't want to believe. We don't want to believe that. We don't want to look at the world in that way. We don't necessarily agree with his line of thinking. So we're going to just dismiss it. So we're looking for confirmation bias. We are looking, and we'll surround ourselves with friends who are like an echo chamber of like, yeah, it's totally okay. Like he's totally in the wrong. You're in the right. Yeah, I would have done the same thing. And we become in this echo chamber because we want this confirmation bias, but that's not actually good for us because the goal through co-parenting is that we are trying to solve problems together regardless of differences of opinion. So confirmation bias is actually working against us. And same with this intentional misunderstanding. So we're rather closed off. We don't want to give them the benefit of the doubt. And what we are actually doing sometimes when we're listening, quote unquote, listening to our ex is that we are attaching all sorts of stories to what they are saying. So we are not present and listening to their words and their intent. We are hearing one piece of it and we're like assigning all this meaning to it. And that might not be the case. This meaning is ours, it is not factual. So what we've got to do is we've got to detach fact from story, which we're going to talk about in a minute. So these are some of the reasons why we might intentionally try to misunderstand. And we don't often think about that we're doing this, right? We think we're going in good-hearted, we're going to argue our point, but we do this. We all have done this. We go in trying to misunderstand the person because it makes us feel better. It feels like some sort of power, control, ego-centered, feel-good decision to do stuff like that. But there is a cost to us. There's definitely a cost to the co-parenting relationship because it damages the relationship. It creates unnecessary conflict because you are literally looking for conflict even in situations where they are trying to resolve conflict. They're trying to figure out a solution. They're trying to share their perspective. They're willing to talk to you. And all you're doing is looking for problems. So this is quite damaging to the relationship because it blocks cooperation and it keeps you stuck. It keeps you stuck in this cycle that you're unwilling to get out of because you're intentionally trying to misunderstand things. So the final little piece on the cost that I want to leave you with is we think it's about winning over the other person, and that by us standing our ground, it actually is maybe causing them pain, which might be true, but ultimately it's costing you the peace and calmness inside of you, because you end up carrying this emotional stress, this frustration with you that the other person is always wrong. They're intentionally trying to, cause problems. They're not seeing your point. They're refusing to see your point, and it builds this frustration and resentment and irritation in you. So when you try to sort of win and construe things, that actually is quite disruptive and inhibits your ability to find peace within yourself and within the co-parenting relationship. So this is obviously not what we want. So once we can start to see our patterns, we can start to shift out of them. So the first piece of this, always, 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 in any of my teachings, the first piece is always noticing. We've got to notice our patterns. So now that I'm bringing this to your awareness, see where this shows up in your life. And when you see it happening, I want you to pause. I want you to pause just to simply observe, oh, I'm in this pattern. I'm intentionally trying to misconstrue what he or she is saying. And slow it down, take some breaths, take a pause. You can even put pause on the conversation if you need to and come back and rediscuss it later once you can sort of settle down from that pattern if it's in quite a reactive mode. Next, we want to separate fact from story. Okay, so there's the facts of what the other person is saying, there's the facts of the situation, and then there's the meaning that we attach to it. So I'll give you an example. I was driving home the other night and my road was closed for a special event. So some of my neighbors were having a party. They wanted the road closed. I have no idea what was going on. I was not invited. So, but I was coming home. It was 10:30 at night. I pull up to the end of my street. There's the barricade across. There's still room for me to get by. But I look down to see that the road is completely empty. So I'm assuming that they've just forgotten to take the barricades down. So it's 10:30 at night, it's pitch black, I'm exhausted. I'm like, I'm not gonna park like a couple blocks away and walk. I'm going to drive to my house. So I start driving down the street and I'm going quite slow because I'm like, okay, maybe if there's people still out, like obviously I'm not gonna go speeding down the street. And this lady comes out and she's standing in the middle of the road, waving her hands. And I roll down the window to talk to her, and she just starts swearing at me, like, you effing blah, blah, blah. And I was like, roll up the window and just proceed to my driveway. And then they left a note on my car. So what happened, and the note was all about how I was causing all sorts of safety issues. I was a danger to the kids, the animals, the adults, and like I was just this really horrible person for causing all these safety issues. So let's talk about this from the fact versus story. Fact, I went through the barricade of the road closed sign. That is true. The story she attached, the meaning she attached to that was I was endangering everybody who was still out. There was nobody on the street. I was driving slow just in case there was no danger to anybody. So that is the fact of the barricade. Yes, that's true. The meaning she assigned me, like to me going through the barricade, that was the story. So this is where we want to start to pick apart what we are actually hearing in conversation, what we are experiencing in situation. Okay, this is fact, this is story. When emotions are running high, there's often stories attached, and we really want to try to dissect this. And one of the really good ways to do that is to check our assumptions. So is it true? Is X equal to Y? Is going through the barricade equal to safety risks? Okay, is that true? Are the assumptions and conclusions that you're coming to, ask yourself, is it true? And really be honest with yourself. So another example might be like, oh, my ex is always late picking up my kids. Like he's doing this on purpose. It's completely disrespectful. Well, the fact is that he's late, probably more often than not. But the fact that he is disrespectful and doing it on purpose, well, that's the story that you're attaching to it. So we can just start to ask ourselves, is it true? Is it true that he's being disrespectful? It might feel disrespectful, but is he intentionally trying to be disrespectful? No, he might just be like a person who's always late. So let's try to pull apart fact from the story that we're assigning and the meaning that we're assigning to things. And the next thing we can do is we can ask clarifying questions. So I want to clarify what you mean by that. My understanding of this. Is that correct? Can you help me understand why you did this? Help me understand why you made this decision. Had that lady said something like that to me, had she calmly approached the car, I was willing to talk to her. I wasn't like being a complete douchebag. Had she just said, hey, did the road was closed, what's going on? And I could have said, oh, I saw that the street was empty and I just assumed that the party was over and someone just left the barricades up. And that could have been the end of the discussion. So asking clarifying questions rather than jumping to assumptions, you can really get to the bottom of things. And the last one I really want to push you to acknowledge is, are you willing for the other person to be right? Is it okay for them to win the argument? Do they have a more logical, reasonable solution than you do? Are you willing and open to hearing it? And this is one that might push you at times because, like I said, we are attached to winning and proving ourselves right. We want to feel important, like we've got it all figured out, but we need to be willing to hear the other person and that their solution might actually be a better solution than ours. So we need to be open to that. So I'll just recap that for a minute. Next time you feel yourself getting worked up and wanting to win and prove your point, notice the pattern you're in, stop. Take some deep breaths to recenter yourself. Ask yourself, what is fact? What is fiction? What is true? Is this true? What is the story that you are telling yourself about this scenario? And is that story true or is it an assumption? And then from that place, from that calmer place, from that place of more awareness, you can then re-engage in the conversation and you can actually work towards a more amicable solution, which is really what we want in the first place. It does us no good to try to intentionally misconstrue things and misunderstand the other person just to get a dig in and try to win. So I encourage you to place your awareness on this week. Start to notice if you are doing this in your relationship. And are you adding stories to misconstrue the situation rather than listening with the intention of really understanding your ex's perspective? If this has resonated with you, if your co-parenting situation has felt stuck or like it's one misunderstanding after another and you're just kind of butting heads, then definitely check out my free co-parenting training. I do a free class every so often and it's really designed to help you disengage from battles and find peace within yourself and really create a new co-parenting dynamic by developing new skills within yourself without needing your ex to change. This is all about how when you show up differently, everyone around you is forced to change and it becomes this really, really beautiful, powerful process. So if this is resonating with you, definitely click the link and check it out and notice this week where you are intentionally trying to misunderstand. And I will see you next time.